As a man in his late 20s, I went through a fair amount of stress and upset in my life, like most of us. Having supported my wife and her family during a long period of illness and loss on their side of the family and having a stressful job working in healthcare, I never had time to take care of myself. Over the years, this became worse, and my depression and stress increased, but I would never let them know how I felt as they had enough to deal with without worrying about me. One night, I took myself on a drive to clear my head. I was driving alone and just got over a bridge about 10 minutes from my house. I saw a woman standing in the opposite lane of the road facing me, and she was gone in a blink of an eye that felt like a lifetime. She was around 6 foot, her hair that was shoulder length but on end with a brilliant white at her roots leading to a beautiful autumnal orange at the ends. She had deathly pale skin and eyes that appeared sore from crying, and all she was wearing was a long, dirty white sleeveless summer dress that dragged on the floor. She was looking straight at me, connecting my gaze with hers. I pulled over to collect myself. I checked the rearview mirror and saw only the empty road behind me. I felt a horrible sense of fear in the pit of my stomach, hoping this was the only time this would happen. I was wrong. 3 months went by with no other sightings of her, but I had been having a sense of someone watching me when I was alone. At the time, I put it down to my poor mental health. However, one evening as I was passing through the kitchen to the next room, and she appeared again, 3 feet away from me in my own house. Just like before, there was crippling eye contact, but this time I froze in place. It felt like an eternity staring at each other, but like the first time I saw her, she was gone in a flash without a single noise from either of us. It was so intense that I felt utterly drained and collapsed to the floor, coming to with my wife trying to wake me. I never told my wife any of this as I didn't want to worry her, or for her to think I'm breaking down, but it felt like the most real thing that happened to me in years. The sense of fear and dread that I had from these experiences was overwhelming, and I had many sleepless nights thinking about that woman, how pale she was, the soreness of her eyes and that hair, the brightness of the white and the intenseness of the orange. It's been a couple of years now, and I have since separated from my wife and now live alone, but I sometimes feel I am not on my own. I found it challenging to live on my own, and it has been a stressful time with my mental health suffering, and I haven't thought about the woman with the wild hair for some time. That all changed last night. I woke up in the middle of the night, which is typical for me, but as I woke up, my eyes were wide and I was frozen in pure fear. I was on my side facing the wall, and not only could hear shallow breaths, I could feel them on the back of my neck, so cold they stung my skin. I started to shake as I knew it was her. After these years, I knew it was her. My body tensed to the point of pain. I closed my eyes as I felt her getting even closer. Her cold hand started to gently run over my ribs, and I could feel her wide hair tickling the back of my head. At this point, I screamed and jolted my entire body. It was then that I woke up in a sweaty mess. I spun around in bed. I was alone, and my breathing calmed. It was a nightmare. But as I looked around, I found a dozen or so wild white hairs with orange ends on the pillow next to me, and an imprint of where someone was laying. I will never be alone. I grew up in a pretty rundown trailer park in the Midwest, gravel roads, surrounded by the ugly Midwestern wilderness. Overgrown and full of disgusting bugs that'll make your day miserable. All my neighbors were certified crackheads that we tended to avoid. Hell, my own household avoided each other, staying each in our own rooms. Even eating dinners in our rooms was the norm. But to make a long story short, we were extremely poor, and nothing in life was exciting enough to bring us together. Years later, as an adult, I look back and still feel some nostalgia. My life wasn't perfect, and my family was ultimately doomed, but I have some good memories. I'd spend nights out in the backyard on our old janky trampoline, curled up in a sleeping bag, little boombox playing some old cassettes my grandmother had given me, think Buddy Holly era. I'd stare up at the stars all night, millions of them clouding my vision, catching the occasional shooting star. It fascinated me to think about what could exist up there in the great unknown. The crickets and low hum of the highway in the distance as semis rolled by, combined with my boombox, was hypnotizing. Anyways, the reason I bring all this up is because as an adult I became extremely fascinated with space. Taking in all the technical knowledge I could, I majored in physics, and after graduating got a job as a high school physics teacher. Now I try really hard to stick to hard science and the facts, but tonight's events have given me the concrete evidence I've needed to start talking. When I was a kid, I used to sleep with my bed tucked against the window wall so I could stare out the window and fall asleep. Well, one night a massive ball of white light sped by about 30 feet from my house. I could clearly see it as I was staring out the window. I was in complete shock but ended up falling asleep shortly after. For years I wondered if my brain had confused this memory with a dream, until the sleep paralysis started. My parents divorced in my late teens. My dad, brother, and I moved to another shitty house in the woods in the next town over, leaving my mother to her own wits at the old house. Not to get too far into, but life still wasn't great, and my father hadn't thought of getting us beds, so I slept on some blankets in my new room. This was my first instance of sleep paralysis. If you've experienced this, you know exactly the feelings I'll try to describe. My body felt as if it had been pinned to the floor. I was unable to breathe, speak, or move. Out of the corner of my room where I was facing was a window, and black figure stepped up to the window on the outside, slowly opened it and slicked its way through as if it had no bones, and walked towards me, coming down to its knees and bringing its completely black face inches from mine. Immediately waking up as it would have touched my face to its own, I was out of breath and completely terrified. Instances of these dreams carried on for my whole life, but I noticed eye pattern. When I slept near a window and could see outside, a ball of light would speed by before I'd fall into my nightmares. I've never told anyone about the dreams, not even my wife. Life's been fine, I mean great, without bringing up my strange traumas. She's perfect, and I didn't want to disturb the life we've made. We just recently had a baby, a girl we named Sadie, after my wife's grandmother, and also bought our first home. Today changes all of that, though. I saw the light and had another dream. The figure was many and came through every entrance into the room, closet, windows, master bath. But they didn't come to me. They came for her, my sweet baby girl. They wanted my Sadie. I couldn't move, breath. I tried screaming. I wanted to scream so fucking bad, but nothing worked. As a collective, they surrounded her crib, and the one who entered through the window picked her up and slinked out the window while the others went back to their respective holes. When I awoke, she was gone. I'm writing this now because I don't know what's going to happen next. I know for sure that I'll never see my daughter again, and just in case something happens to me, I just want there to be documentation. Look, in my field and in my studies, you hear a lot wacko stories about space aliens and rogue asteroids and just the general end-of-the-world nonsense, so I know how this sounds, but this is real. If you have seen the shadow people in your dreams or the glowing orbs, you and your loved ones are in danger. They aren't from here. My name's Bill Harkin, and let my story be a warning. Any historian has likely heard of the Anunnaki, legendary deities worshipped in ancient Mesopotamia. But most people are blind to what they truly are. They were aliens. They came to Earth before humans were fully developed and mated with early primates, their descendants being early humans. They left but returned after their offspring developed. The early humans viewed them as gods. These aliens capitalized on this and enslaved humanity, turning them into obedient servants. They built monuments and palaces, these structures now known as the pyramids. After years of being on Earth, the Anunnaki discovered something that terrified them: death. On their planet, they could live for millennia, but they were slowly dying from the diseases of Earth, which they had no protection from, and so they left. But first, they mated with a few other humans. These humans and their descendants would be stronger and smarter than the rest of their kind, leading to them taking control and leading humanity. Flash forward a few hundred years. To be specific, the 1960s. Most humans have lost the Anunnaki genes. With the exception of the descendants of the humans the Anunnaki mated with the last time they visited. The Anunnaki returned to Earth. They want their slaves back, but they still couldn't remain on Earth for too long, lest they become infected with something fatal. But they planned for this after they left. They enlist their remaining descendants to help seize control. By pulling a few strings, the descendants of the Anunnaki are put into positions of power. They help keep humanity from realizing what's happening. Every scandal, every terrorist attack, every war, every pandemic, all of it was intentional. A method to distract us from the Anunnaki slowly invading. They created social media to make humanity argue and get into needless conflicts, so we are too busy fighting each other to see what's going on. They created fast food to stop humanity from being strong enough to fight back. They created hallucinogens and discreetly sold them as a cover for any evidence humans spotted of the Anunnaki's presence. Every step humanity took, the Anunnaki paved the road. I know because I saw it. I was walking home from work when I saw something glowing in a construction site near my house. I decided to take a detour to see what it was. What I saw terrified me. A large metal object was in the middle of the site, but that isn't what scared me. I was shaken to my very core when I saw the beings standing next to the craft. I don't know where to begin describing them. I felt as if I was about to pass out. Then I noticed someone else, a human, or at least it looked like one. When I looked a little closer, I recognized her as one of the candidates for mayor in my town's upcoming election. She exchanged a few words with the beings. I couldn't make out what, and by this point I didn't care. I took off running, not stopping until I made it home. The next day I quit my job and spent almost 15 hours at the library, trying to find anything on what I saw. After a week of research, terrified of being found, I went to my local history museum and asked to take a closer look at some of their artifacts from ancient Mesopotamia. My request was denied, but I didn't give up. That night I gathered my courage and broke into the museum. I wished I thought ahead more because I was caught before I found anything of value. When the police took me in, I decided to explain what I saw. They laughed, of course. I wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't seen it. Apparently, I had severely damaged some of the other things on display, so the case was taken to court. Again, I tried to explain what had happened, and again, nobody believed me. My lawyer decided to plead innocent by insanity. I was sent to an insane asylum the next day. I managed to smuggle in a notebook and a pen, so I decided to use it to write everything I've learned, as well as to write my suicide note. Plan on ending it all tomorrow, since I don't plan on being around when it occurs. You see, the Anunnaki had been planning to slowly invade us for a long time, but there is one thing they did not consider. Their plan is backfiring. Humanity has become paranoid and violent. Slowly manipulating us won't work anymore, so they need to take Earth by force. World War III is on the horizon, and the enemy is not another country. It's another world. And the worst part, they're already here. They were always here. They will always be here. The real question is, will we?